Good morning, County Council. I would like to call to order this County Council agenda of March 26, 2026. At this point in time, as you are able, please rise and join us in the singing of O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please conduct our roll call?
Councillor Mackey, Councillor McKay, Councillor Carleton, Councillor Pringle, Councillor McQueen, Councillor Nielsen, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Dickert, Councillor Kentner, Councillor Keaveney, Councillor Body, Councillor Gregg, Councillor Milne,
Present.
Councillor Dobreen,
Present.
Warden Matrosovs, Councillor Bourdignon, I don't believe we are expecting today, Councillor Eccles,
Counted for.
Councillor Hutchinson. We have all members in attendance today with the exception of Councillor Bourdignon.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let us begin by respectfully acknowledging that we are gathering on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg Nation, the people of the Three Fires known as the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nations. And further, we give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, known collectively as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the traditional keepers of these lands and waters since time immemorial. In our south lies the traditional territories of the Six Nations of the Grand River and the Haudenosaunee. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and friendship with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. And as land acknowledgements are to be personal, I want to add on, I want to share with you in this past month, something remarkable that I think has happened. First of all, I want to thank the Deputy Warden who took on the chair so that I could be absent during the previous council meeting in order to attend two very significant First Nations events. I also want to thank the Deputy Warden as past warden for the pathway that he laid ahead of me in this chair towards truth, reconciliation, and friendship, and the understanding that those words have to have action behind them. So during that week, I attended the 8th Fire Conference down in Sarnia, hosted by the First Nations there, to learn more about how we walk together in this pathway of reconciliation. I learned so much and was so welcomed. I then spent the rest of that week here, very close to home, with the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Network, to be able to walk there and understand the two-eyed way of seeing things and how we have an ethical responsibility to walk together as we do, learning from each other. So this month, CAO Schertzer and I, this week, were invited for the very first time for Grey County to come and to present, invited by the Chippewas of Nawash Council to come to their meeting and to talk about collaboration. We discussed the transit project and how we might collaborate so that both our residents of Grey County, as well as our sister county, Bruce County, who was also present, and how their nation's people and their residents could be able to benefit from collaboration together. It was an honor to be invited there to be able to work on that, and we are excited about the steps that they have asked us to be able to do together. We have been doing a great job at walking through this, learning through our museum, through the work that we have been doing, walking and learning about how we can continue the invitations, continue to invite the Chippewas of Nawash and the Chippewas of Saugeen to participate in this pathway. But it was a first for us to be able to be formally invited to their council to be able to discuss collaboration at their invitation. And that doesn't just happen spontaneously. It's going to be generations of walking truth and reconciliation and friendship. But I am so pleased by the work that we've been doing together to say that we can add to this in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, friendship, and collaboration with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. So thank you. It was a pleasure to be able to be moved, not just by the words that we say each and every council meeting, which have deep and profound meaning to me when I speak them, but to be able to, on my own pathway to understanding, be able to see how much more we can do together. So with that, I would like to move on to the adoption of the minutes. It's recommended that the minutes of County Council meeting and the Committee of the Whole meeting dated March 12th, 2026, and the resolutions contained therein be adopted as presented. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Dickert, seconded by Councillor McKay. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Next, we have, it is recommended that the Long-Term Care Committee of Management meetings dated March 19th, the Long-Term Care Committee Long-Term Care Committee of Management meeting minutes dated March 19th be adopted as presented, and the following resolutions contained therein be endorsed, and they have been listed and posted. There are 10 different items that are in front of you today. All
for information, the Long-Term Care Committee of Management updates and endorse the related recommendations. Operations across the 3 long-term care homes remain stable, with continued progress on quality, workforce development, and capital priorities. Key highlights from the meeting and the discussions include successful implementation of the Inter-RAI assessment system, completion of annual influenza vaccination campaigns, and advancement of the dementia care programming across all 3 homes. And I know it's been discussed at the Horseshoe before, but I can't waste an opportunity to discuss it again. So I'd like to highlight a significant event that happened in early March with an announcement, an ECHO announcement, and a visit to Lee Manor. MPP Vickers, Parliamentary Assistant Dawn Gallagher Murphy, she's a Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Long-Term Care, the Deputy Warden, and others attended Lee Manor to announce and celebrate Lee Manor being one of the 17 homes in the province to receive the Improving Dementia Care funding. And all month, there's been extensive training and education happening. Over 245 team members are doing a number of different training, including everyone is attending a full day education at Sydenham. So I'll be leaving shortly after council to go over and participate in that. I think it's at the 7th of 8 full day training days. And something that PA Gallagher Murphy mentioned in her comments was something that was really important that I somehow missed in the original announcements. So there were over 175 proposals submitted, and Lee Manor was selected as one of 17 to receive the funding. Of those 17, there are 5 emotion-based models of care that are being funded with that money. So 17 homes are doing one of 5 models. A number of them are implementing Butterfly, the Butterfly model, which is a trademarked emotion-based model of care. A number of them are implementing Eden Alternative and Dementiability. And the other 2 models are Grey County Color It Your Way as a model of care, and Durham Region has a similar homegrown model of care that's been endorsed by the province. Just to really highlight that Grey County Long-Term Care is leading the way in a motion-based model of care and has been for over a decade. And it's a huge acknowledgement of the work that the teams and all of the staff are doing in all 3 of our homes to be recognized in that way by the province as an official model of care. So it's pretty exciting. Thank you. As part of the home's ongoing accreditation journey, the annual reports have been completed and reflect the significant work and many achievements of the long-term care department throughout 2025. I encourage everyone to seek out those reports. They're embedded in the reports. They're also featured on the long-term care pages of our website. And they highlight staff leadership, quality improvement, and continued commitment to resident-centered care. And we all live in a very fast-paced environment these days. I don't think we thought it was fast before the pandemic, and then it got really fast, and it just hasn't slowed down. So it's good to take a minute and reflect on what's happened in the year prior before we just move on to the next project and the next achievement. So I encourage you to go and have a look at that. Several capital and infrastructure items were advanced to support resident safety and care quality, including approval to proceed with a request for proposal for a nurse call system replacement at Grey Gables and Lee Manor, funded through reprioritized 2026 capital projects. Construction of the new Rockwood Terrace continues to progress toward key milestones, supporting future service delivery needs. And that's a very high level summary of those 10 items, and happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you. Yes, there may be some questions because there was quite a lot to cover, but I do appreciate you sharing that great news. And it's amazing to think that one of the Made in Grey practices that we have is something that might be utilized and might be uplifted and shared across the province because of the great work that's happening here. So indeed, that is something to celebrate. With that, are there any questions from council members? We'll go to Councillor Greig.
Thank you for the opportunity. One easy question. You note the nurse call replacement for Grey Gables. I presume it's a scalable system. Should in the next 3 to 5, 7 years, Grey Gables be expanded, that we would not hit any roadblocks.
Thank you. Through you, Warden Matrosovs. Good question. The intention originally has been to have a similar system to the Rockwood Terrace system, and you'll see that kind of embedded in the report. So we're hoping to be able to achieve that. We may not be able to achieve that through the same vendor, depending on how things shake out with the RFP. Those systems are scalable, and I'll maybe look to Jody if there's any more kind of specific details. I would suggest that in 7 years, we might be starting to look at either expanding the system that's in place to new technology. Technology is changing so fast. But 3 to 5 years, it would be expandable, and probably by 7 or 10, we're looking at the systems broadly to see if they still meet the needs based on what new technology exists.
Okay, I'll just look online, look around the room. I don't see any further hands up, so we have it moved and seconded. We've had a chance to hear from Director Cornell, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you. And we do not have any closed matter meetings nor reports. We can move to the bylaws. It's recommended that bylaws 527426 and 527526 and 527626 be introduced and taken as read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the warden and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed into the bylaw book. The first one is bylaw 527426, a bylaw to approve and authorize the expropriation of portion of lands within the municipality of Grey Highlands, County of Grey. Next is 527526, a bylaw to authorize the disposition of certain lands in the city of Owen Sound as described in Schedule A, Lot 50. And 527626, a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of the council. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? I've got a move by Councillor Body, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that motion is carried. News and celebrations. I believe we are going to, okay, we'll start with Director Myers. Did you want to begin, and then I'll move it out to the council?
Thank you so much. Good morning, County Council. I have two items to share with you this morning. The first is great news around the Team Grey MOU. As of last Wednesday, I am happy to report that we have endorsement from all 9 member municipalities. So our thanks to you. Staff are already excited to get working on it. We've got templates and work plans and everything underway now so that we can begin documenting and tracking and reporting on the progress that we make together jointly through this shared collaborative framework. So thank you to all in that first quarter to have approval from all 9. It was phenomenal. And the second good news that we have is that the Cruise and Connect networking event is coming back. So that is where we take over the Chi-Chi-Mon for a night. April 23rd is the date that we have. Tickets went on sale yesterday. So we encourage any of your staff, any of your businesses, community leaders. It is a great networking opportunity where you really can't leave because you're on a boat going for a lovely tour. And we have networking opportunities. We have lots of refreshments. All of the staff are really there to make sure that everybody feels welcome, engaged, and gets to know a new face throughout the course of the night. So information is now online. It's on social media. Tickets are available, and they're already starting to sell quickly, which is great. We sell out every year. 350 is our capacity on the Chi-Chi-Mon on the 23rd of April. So thank you so much.
Excellent. And indeed, in addition to being very fruitful to be there for the networking and the workshops that are actually being presented right there on the boat, it's also a lot of fun. So yes, we'll go to Councillor McQueen.
Just a question, can you give us a bit more, is there a cost to it, or is it just sign up, or is there details on it? Like, I've never been on it.
Excellent. Sorry. Yes. Good question. Tickets are $40. So it is a cost recovery model that we do. There's lots of advertising out and about, but you can go on the website and you will see all the information that is there, and tickets are sold through Eventbrite. So it's a good user system. And the time boarding is at 6:30. We depart at 7. Not 7:01. They are very clear with us about timing. It is 7 o'clock and it's about a 2.5-hour cruise. So we go out and then come back, and it's just a great night all around. Live music as well.
And my official job is to join the warden of Bruce County to greet everybody on board and make sure they're all up that plank by the time it's 7 o'clock. Okay, so other news and celebrations. We'll go to Councillor McKay.
Yeah, those that are attending Good Roads this year, just to follow a bit more on what the warden had spoke on earlier. You'll notice a difference after 100 and some years that Good Roads has been going. It has been decided that Indigenous needs some voice at the table. So we put it out there to First Nations. They've nominated 2 Indigenous representatives to be directors on Good Roads. So when we parade up front on Monday or Tuesday, well, I think it's Tuesday, you will see some changes there. So we look forward to that. And I think it's a great idea to get some ideas from the First Nations people to give their thoughts on what Good Roads is all about. So we look forward to that. So thank you very much.
Excellent. I do look forward to attending and seeing that change. Other news and celebrations from communities. We'll go to Councillor Body.
Thank you. On behalf of the city, we want to thank Georgian Bluffs and Meaford and their residents who are on Owen Sound Water for their cooperation during our precautionary boil water advisory a couple of weeks ago. We're quite happy to get through that.
Thank you for that. And indeed, it was very professionally handled, both your city staff, our county staff where they could join in, and the community organizations. It was phenomenal to see how quickly it all came together in order to be able to support. So great leadership there. And other news and celebrations, we'll go to Councillor Kentner.
I may be a bit premature here, so I don't have a lot of information, but what I can tell you is there is a parade and ceremony at the 4th Canadian Division Training Center tomorrow. And after that event, the range will come under a new name and a more prominent role in the Canadian Forces. So all part of what's happening as far up as NATO. And I think that there's a strong contingent of councillors and staff from the municipality of Meaford have been invited, and I believe it's going to be a major turning point and further development of the range. Thank you.
Thank you. Just look online and I'll look around the room. Okay, I don't see any further hands. So at this point in time, we'll look for a motion to adjourn. Got it moved by Councillor Nielsen and seconded by Councillor Dobreen. All those in favor? And that is carried. We'll give a moment for technology to turn over. Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to call to order this committee of the whole agenda of March 26, 2026. At this point in time, I will put out a call if there are any declarations of interest. Looking around the room and online, I am seeing no hands raised. In that case, then we'll move on to our delegations. We have just one delegation this morning, and Hillary Thurston of Local Immigration Partnership as the Local Immigration Partnership Supervisor will be making a presentation with regards to the Grey Bruce Local Immigration Partnership. So welcome, Ms. Thurston. I see you there online. And what we'll do is we will listen to your presentation, and then I'll put it out to Committee of the Whole members if they have any questions for you. So at that point in time, we can direct them to you. So welcome.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thank you, and through you, Warden. I am going to share my screen here, so give me a moment. I'm going to pull up our Community Action Plan from 2025 to 2028, which we have just completed, and we are quite proud to share it today. My name is Hillary Thurston. I'm the supervisor of the Grey Bruce Local Immigration Partnership. And you should be able to see the action plan up on the screen there now.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so the what I'll present to you today is a rundown of this community action plan, as well as generally updates from our first fiscal year under Bruce County's leadership, and highlights around priorities planned for fiscal year 2. So the Community Action Plan builds on a foundational settlement strategy that was developed and carried out during the first funding term from 2020 to 2025 under Grey County's leadership. The new action plan sets the direction for the next 3 years under Bruce County. It was developed through partner consultations and listening sessions and is informed by local research on newcomer needs. On page 6, you will find an executive summary outlining 3 strategic priorities. So I'll scroll down here through. We have a land acknowledgement, our acknowledgements, a bit of an about section, but I wanted to highlight this summary in the interest of time, because this kind of gives you a snapshot of what the plan includes. So if you see this highlighted box here in the center, this highlights our 3 strategic priorities for action. So all of our action steps are oriented around these areas. The first being fostering community collaboration, focusing on strengthening partnerships, improving coordination, enhancing access to shared tools and information so that services and resources are aligned for maximum impact. And the second priority is the employer engagement and workforce integration focus. And this aims to respond to persistent labor shortages by supporting employers with education, resources, and inclusive practices that help newcomers access meaningful employment and succeed in the workplace. So we run workshops and seminars, and we hire in experts to come and speak about issues like PR pathways, and other things that affect employers, like immigration law, things like that, that can really set us up as a region to support not only newcomer attraction, but retention, importantly. The third priority is welcoming communities, which emphasizes that belonging requires ongoing intention, creating opportunities for connection, challenging misconceptions, and fostering a culture where all residents feel valued and included. So I'll just kind of scroll down here, give you a general look at the plan. Here's this kind of graphic that details these priorities. We did intentionally think about how these particular priorities were going to map onto our actions more broadly throughout the next few years. And so they actually align with our structure in a way. So the first priority really speaks to our partnership council as a whole. So we organize, 60 plus community agencies, municipalities, businesses in the area. We convene everybody, and that's really where the networking happens and where we can connect to collaborate and develop these opportunities for pathways to, new opportunities, new resources, new programs, et cetera. So that's that first fostering community collaboration piece really hits on that general council. Then we have the subcommittees. So you can see those in the purple stones there on the side. So we've got a connect subcommittee and a workforce subcommittee. So you can see how that sort of maps onto our employer engagement and workforce integration and welcoming communities. So we have the sort of social development piece as well as workforce development. So our focus is relatively well-rounded in that regard. Now, fiscal year 1 has been a foundational year for us. We're really focused on rebuilding momentum under Bruce County's leadership after some wonderful work that was done over the last 5 years at Grey County. Some of the key accomplishments from this sort of transitional year we've had is that we did develop these 2 subcommittees. The workforce subcommittee focused on workforce economic development, the Connect subcommittee focused on social and cultural development. We hosted expert webinars on immigration law and policy trends. We delivered cultural competency skills training to partnership council members. We onboarded 3 new regional partners, including Elephant Thoughts, the Victorian Order of Nurses, and Keystone Child, Youth, and Family Services. We relaunched an existing public awareness campaign in partnership with neighboring local immigration partnerships. We developed a comprehensive communication strategy to improve public engagement, and we have a number of initiatives outlined for the next year in our comms strategy. We launched the 2026 Immigrant Experience Survey as well, and this is in collaboration with the University of Guelph, the Research Shop Lab. These activities reflect our objective to strengthen the region's coordinated approach to welcoming newcomers and addressing labor force needs. And so in fiscal year 2, we have several major initiatives underway. We'll just scroll down here. This is, if you can see on the plan, this just kind of fleshes things out a little bit in a little bit more detail. That's a nice visual to land it on, and I'll tell you a little bit about our fiscal year 2 plan. So we've got several key initiatives going on currently. We are planning the Diversity and Belonging Conference set for October 2026. This was a conference that was run in 2024, and it was a big hit. We convened over 120 participants. We had some excellent speakers and entertainment, and it was a really great opportunity. People had a lot of good feedback around it, so we definitely wanted to do this again. We are redeveloping a cultural competency training program, and this was initiated by Grey County staff in the first funding term. So we're sort of redeveloping, revamping, and aiming to relaunch in July. We're also developing a partner portal, which would be a digital hub to streamline collaboration between settlement and non-settlement service providers and partnership members. A speaker series, including topics on immigration policy updates, cultural responsiveness, debunking misinformation, platforming newcomer success stories, truth and reconciliation, that sort of thing. So we've got a lot lined up for knowledge sharing events. Our communications campaign, of course, we've got welcoming week campaign planned, website updates, social media strategy, working on a ton of good stuff there, and research collaborations. So we're currently running the immigrant experience survey for the second time. They ran that in 2023, so we're trying to keep updating this information. And I've also just started working with Huron Lib, as well as a researcher from Western, on a retention study about why newcomers leave our rural areas. We expect the findings to inform local strategies to improve retention efforts. So as a local immigration partnership, our work focuses on unifying the efforts of settlement and non-settlement sectors. All of our activities reinforce that collaboration is the key driver of successful newcomer retention. And by mobilizing our diverse partners, we can build smarter systems, stronger relationships, and more welcoming communities. Thank you so much for your time today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thurston. And this is very helpful. We'll look around for any questions directly for you. Later, item 7A will be our discussion item where we'll look to endorse this. So most of the discussion is going to happen at that point in time from committee of the whole members, along with the support of our staff. So at this point, this is just a good moment for us to be able to understand the information that you presented to us today. So thank you. So I'll look around the room, looking online for any hands going up. Any questions? Okay, not seen any. You did provide us with a lot of information in that, so thank you very much. That has been very helpful. I think that's going to really foster a good conversation when we get to that agenda item. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that then, we will move on to item 5, which is determination of items required for separate discussion. Listed in section 6 of the consent agenda are 10 different items. So I'll ask you if there is an item that you wish to pull, that you cite which one it is so that the clerk can make sure that we address that towards later on in the agenda. Any items 6A through J? Looking online, looking around the room. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands go up. So at this point in time, then I will entertain a motion for item 6, which is that the following consent agenda items be received and that staff be authorized to take the actions necessary to give effect to the recommendations in the reports, staff reports, and that the correspondence be supported or received for information as recommended in the consent agenda. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Nielsen. It's now on the floor for discussion. Any discussion since we've just looked at all of those together? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. All right. That allows us to skip a few pages through then to item 7A. Which is timely since we just heard the excellent delegation. It is recommended that EDTC CW 0726 Grey Bruce Local Immigration Partnership Community Action Plan and annual update be received, that the report regarding the Grey Bruce Local Immigration Partnership Community Action Plan and annual update be received, and that the Community Action Plan 2025 to 2028 be endorsed. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? I've got Councillor Eccles online is moving and Councillor Keaveney is seconding. It's now on the floor for discussion. So welcome, Director Myers.
Thank you very much. I will not repeat everything that Hillary just said because she did a great job of presenting this report for me, which is wonderful. But we wanted to have the opportunity for you to meet Hillary, who is the supervisor for GBLIP now that it is under Bruce County. And then Bailey, who also works with her as the engagement specialist. She wasn't able to join today, but we're very fortunate to have two excellent staff who are working on the new version of GBLIP. And I do wanted to say that it is a new version. We had the agreement here for the first 5 years. It was a 5-year agreement. It looked very differently than what this one does. IRCC has pulled back quite a bit. So this is now a 3-year agreement. We have fewer staff, we have fewer key action items to do, but they're very well focused. And I think that's what you see in the community action plan now is a real kind of framework around this is the role that we play to help clarify the roles and responsibilities for us and our partners. Because as Hillary said, we do have more than 60 partners who are still around that partnership council, and that continues to grow, which is great news. So we know that the community sees value in it. Our role really is about assembling everybody together, making sure that we're not duplicating efforts and sharing our resources wherever possible. And that really is the role of the LIP to help create welcoming communities. So there's nothing else that I have in this report to discuss because she has already covered it all for me. But if you do have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, then I will look around the room for any questions or items for discussion. And well, Director Myers, I think perhaps you and Hillary have been doing a great job because you've informed us so well. I don't see hands going up. So in which case then I will ask for the vote. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you again to both of you. Okay, that allows us to move on to item 7B. It's recommended that report PDR CW 1126 regarding the county's age-friendly action plan progress be received for information, and that the staff be authorized to make minor amendments to the county's age-friendly action plan without impacting the intent of the plan to enable the plan implementation, and that staff be directed to share the progress report with all member municipalities for information. Moved by Councillor Dickert and seconded by Councillor Carlton. It's now on the floor for discussion. And so we will look to Cassandra Dillman will be doing a presentation. Yes, we have a presentation from our intermediate planner, Cassandra Dillman. Welcome. And we've got everything queued up for you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Great, thank you. So, welcome. My name is Cassandra, and I am a planner here at the county. And I also lead our age-friendly action plan. So in my presentation today, I'll provide a brief overview of age-friendly community planning, just to sort of put us all on the same page, a bit about the project timeline, an overview of the plan and the progress that we've made, what we've learned along the way, and then highlight some of our success stories and our next steps. So to start, an age-friendly community is designed so that everyone, children, youth, adults, and older residents, can live, work, and play in safe, accessible, and welcoming spaces. So the county has taken a little bit of a different approach here by focusing on all ages. So some communities choose to focus their age-friendly initiatives on seniors, but that does a little bit different. And I think it's really important and valuable to be focusing on all ages. Really, though, we are asking ourselves this question: how can we support independence and social connection across the lifespan? And to guide age-friendly community planning, the World Health Organization, they've developed a framework that focuses on 8 community dimensions. So those are listed there on the screen. And when you combine those, create your livable community. Those 8 dimensions, they're divided into 2 categories, if you will. the physical infrastructure of our communities. So those physical spaces, housing, transportation, and then those softer social design components. So your respect and social inclusion, our health services and employment. And the county's age-friendly action plan is designed and organized around these 8 dimensions. I think really, like, why does this matter? I think is a bit of an important question to address. And really at the heart of age-friendly planning, it benefits everyone. And those are the communities that we want to live in. It aligns well with the principles of good planning, and really creating communities that are walkable, that are inclusive, that are accessible, that reduce downstream health costs, that support vitality. They're sustainable communities, places where people thrive. We are also facing more locally a demographic shift. So right now in the county, 1 in 4 residents are over the age of 65. And by 2035, that is projected to grow. So it's projected to increase to 1 in 3. And those over 85 are projected to double. So I think that'll have a really significant impact on our communities, reshaping some of those needs. And I think we're all very familiar with the challenges of living in a rural community. Our project timeline, some of you may remember a grant that was received by the province in 2021. And that grant was to create the strategy and the action plan. That work was finalized and adopted in 2022. And then later in that year, in 2022, actually, we joined the World Health Organization's Age-Friendly World Network. And then in 2023, we established an Age-Friendly Communities Committee. So that's a network of county and municipal staff, community partners, local agencies, and interested residents that are all working in age-friendly projects across the county. So we're working to implement that action plan. We started the progress review in 2025. And then also earlier this year, you may remember the county was recognized as an age-friendly community by the province. Our action plan, it's quite ambitious. So it has over 100 items that were identified by the community as priorities. Each one of those items has a lead, a partner, performance indicators, resources. So over 700 residents helped to shape that plan. There was workshops, interviews, focus groups, community audits, surveys, and over 20 community partners were also involved in that work. I think that at the end, our action plan is really a community plan. So it's meant to support collaboration between the county, member municipalities, stakeholders, local agencies, and it's meant to align it's meant to align with other plans, policies that we have at the county. And it also gives us this lens that we can apply to our decision making. So how can we make this project, this decision, this policy more age-friendly? And our progress so far. So we have started underway over half of the action items in the plan. And there's been items started in each of those community dimensions. And I know maybe some of you are thinking 50%, not always good news, but I think considering the scope of this plan, I think considering that we've done most of this work on the side of our desks, there's been very little resourcing into this plan. I think that number is impressive, and I think it is something to be celebrated. And just for maybe for illustration, I can also share that part of this work was identifying which action items are within the county mandate and which items might be outside of that scope that rely on those community partners. So if we take those 37 items that we've identified as a community partner, if we just, for illustration, if we take those out of those numbers on the screen, we've made progress on 73% of the action items. And what's working well? So we did learn that there's a lot of age-friendly work that is happening across the county. So a lot of staff are applying this lens in their daily work, and that in turn makes it part of our organizational culture. We also, I really wanted to sort of show and tell that story of our age-friendly community planning. I think there's a number of items that we learned that go above and beyond what's in the action plan. So how do we capture that? How do we tell that story and know that there are items that show the staff commitment to age-friendly goals? We also have a growing community engagement. So membership on our committee has increased. We had 11 new individuals and organizations join in 2025 and just a couple more a few weeks ago. We also have had over 250 residents join an email list. They're interested, and I will share, I haven't sent out an email yet. So those are people that are interested in learning more. And after this meeting, I'll be sharing with them the good news. So I think it just shows that there's interest and that there's commitment, and people are curious to learn more here. Locally, we know that Hanover has been a provincial leader for nearly a decade in age-friendly community planning. And then more recently, we have Grey Highlands and the town of Hanover that have really taken this intergenerational approach to age-friendly. And I think it really shows that we're in good company. What have we learned? The action plan speaks to several really complex societal issues, mental health, addiction, homelessness, and we know that those can't be addressed by one organization. I think that those challenges, it also really shows the county's unique role in our ability to gather stakeholders, to identify priorities, to focus resources, and to advance some of those age-friendly goals. The COVID-19 pandemic, the action plan was created at a very specific moment in time at the height of the pandemic. Staffing resources as well. So the plan identifies hiring a full-time age-friendly coordinator. And in the absence of that position, it does make it challenging to sort of manage and coordinate the plan. That position was tagged with over 25 items for them to lead. Right now, accountability for the plan lies with the planning department, which is why I'm here today. And staff are continuing to advance the plan as best as we can. Evaluation, I think this is often can be a challenge. So sometimes the data for those indicators, they weren't available. Sometimes those organizations, they may no longer exist, or the position no longer exists. And I think some of that prioritization of action items can really help us focus the implementation and the evaluation. Part of this work, as I mentioned earlier, I really wanted to highlight the scope of projects that were underway across the county. So both within the organization and with our community partners that are advancing age-friendly goals. So you'll see in the snapshot document in front of you, that's a summary. And there's more than 40 projects that are highlighted in the report card. So some of those projects, they range from, millions of investment in the county housing fund to staff creating a virtual courtroom, which you would have seen on your way into chambers today. Resurfacing the rail trail, installing cycling signs, supporting student placements, to forming an Indigenous advisory circle at Grey Roots. And I think all of this work, it really shows that if we apply that age-friendly lens and we ask that question, how can this project or policy be more age-friendly? We do some great work. And that's how we create more inclusive communities. For some of our next steps, and this was outlined in that covering staff report as well, there's a few minor refinements that we're proposing at this time. Really, they're efficiency improvements. Some of the action items are quite robust. So for easier tracking, they can be divided into smaller components. In the report card, I identified those with an A, B, or C just to sort of show that they're all related. There's also 4 duplicate items in the action plan. And there was one item that we identified, the creation of an accessibility group that's really no longer needed, especially with the success of our Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. And then continuing plan implementation. And that concludes my presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for sharing the highlights brochure. And I assume that in this brochure that you've circulated, these are highlights of what the lower tier municipalities are doing and highlights of what the county are doing. Not a full and complete list, but just snapshots about what's happening across the county. Very, very helpful. Thank you. That will be a good piece to be sharing at our age-friendly fairs that are happening everywhere. Thank you. So any questions for Planner Dillman? We'll start with Councillor Dobreen online.
Good morning, Warden, County Council. And I wanted to thank Cassandra for the presentation and all of the great work that's being done. I do want to note that Southgate was one of the first to hold a seniors health fair, 2 of them, in fact. So we're really delighted that it has continued. What I would like to, I note from the website that you can sign up for the newsletter through the website. Is there an email address if someone isn't, website friendly? And my second question, Cassandra, through you, Warden, is there is an age-friendly committee. Are there openings for that? We have a relatively new seniors residents that have regular coffee chats and are interested in becoming more engaged. So I'm just wondering how we might refer them on. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And through you, Chair. If someone's having difficulty with accessing the newsletter, they can certainly reach out to myself and I can assist with that. So my email is also right below that link on our website. So cassandra.dillman@gray.ca. And in terms of if there's anyone else that's interested in joining that committee or learning more, I would also suggest reaching out to myself and I can connect as well. I know we have some staff in Southgate that are really active on our committee. So that would be great if we had more residents and seniors as well.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and thank you for your report. I just wanted to comment about the follow-up on the regards to the age-friendly seniors health fair that was at the Kimplex last year. And I'll tell you, those seniors are pretty fired up. They were an exciting bunch and they were just enthusiastic, and it was like I couldn't get over how up there they were. So I will say that it was really inspiring to see, and there's a lot of aspects I would say that we're having it again this year, but yeah, they were just charged right up. It's good to see. So
Yes, thank you. And looking around the room on screen. Okay, I don't see any further hands going up then. So we have the motion in front of us. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you very much. That was a great update to see what's happening across the county. Okay, next we'll move on to item 7C. It's recommended that report CAORCW 0626 regarding the provincial offenses annual report be received for information. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? Okay, we've got it moved by the Deputy Warden online and seconded by Councillor Pringle. It's now on the floor for discussion. Welcome, Manager Kokas.
Thank you. Good morning, County Council. I'm here today to give you just a brief overview of the provincial offences operations over the last year. So for our ticket volumes, we've remained relatively the same over the last 10 years, with having around 11,796 Part 1 tickets issued last year in 2025. So those are the less serious charges such as speeding and liquor license charges. And then last year we had 818 Part 3 informations laid. So those are the more serious charges. So we have had relative stable ticket volumes, which has resulted in a consistent revenue source. However, we do continue to see increased costs, again, specifically surrounding the increased need for interpreter matters and inflationary costs on such as copying, printing, and postage. While we've made a lot of progress with having virtual courtroom, all of our physical documents are still legislated to be in paper. So we still, every ticket issued is a piece of paper that we have to deal with, and also everything has to be mailed. So while we can send things by email, we also have a mandatory legislation to send things by mail. So we are working on that. Other changes that we've faced over the last year is the court security costs. So that is another new thing that we have. So currently on court days, we do have a special constable and an armed officer in the building, and they're responsible for securing the building, walking around, and screening all individuals that will enter the courtroom using a handheld wand device. So there still remains a lot of uncertainty around these security requirements and any funding that might be provided, but I did find out that I have a follow-up meeting with the parliamentary assistant next week. So hopefully we can get some further direction on these new requirements, as well as the need for an increase in these fines, such as speeding, which haven't been increased since 1990, to ensure that we can continue operating as a self-funded model and we don't have to go to the taxpayers. Another big change that we actually just implemented last week is that we are expanding our collection efforts. So currently, since we always used one collection agency to collect on our outstanding fines. So we are following suit with a lot of other courts in the province, and we have expanded now to 3 collection agencies. So instead of having one collection agency look over all 22,000 outstanding fines, we've now spread them out over 3 different agencies, and hopefully they'll get more attention on the specific fines that are outstanding, and hopefully we can collect on that revenue. So those are the big changes that have happened in POA over the last year, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And indeed, that's good news to hear that we're getting follow-up from the delegation. So good luck with that next week. Okay, looking around the room and online for any hands. And I am not seeing any. So in which case then I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we're just going to try to get one more report in here, and then we are going to need to consider when we do our break time. So I will recommend that it is recommended that report CAOR CW 0926 regarding the Green Development Program be received, and that the voluntary Green Development Program be approved as presented, and staff be directed to proceed with the program implementation with an anticipated launch date of the spring of 2026. And that staff be directed to continue collaboration with municipalities to confirm their preferred option for participation, and that staff be delegated authority to make minor program adjustments as needed, subject to approval by the Director of Planning and the Manager of Climate Change Initiatives. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? So we've got a move by Councillor Hutchinson and seconded by Councillor Mackey. It's now on the floor for discussion. So who is going to begin for us? Okay, all right. Welcome, Manager Swanston.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm pleased today to present to you the output of a period of work, which is our recommended green development program. I'm going to provide an introduction and a little bit of rationale and context, and then hand it over to our dedicated lead, Megan Miles, to walk you through the details of the recommended program. So what we're really bringing today is a made in gray approach to green development. This doesn't look like what you see in the 15 plus other jurisdictions across Ontario who have these kind of programs. What we're bringing is a voluntary, no-cost recognition program that allows us to celebrate the great development that is already happening across Grey County that is energy efficient, climate resilient, and affordable in the long term for our residents. We're also designing the program to really maximize our regional competitive advantage and prepare us for construction of the future. You see that in the letters of support, which are part of the report package. We've heard anecdotally, there's already 2 local developers who would like to participate in this program should it be approved, including Habitat Grey Bruce, which I think is a really nice tie-in to the affordability that comes with high performance construction. This program works beside our existing regulatory planning process. Nothing's getting slowed down. Nothing is being presupposed. This is an opportunity for projects that meet the regulated planning process to then be further recognized and validated. So what is this thing? It is a supportive framework that we have developed in partnership with Dufferin and Wellington counties. It's a flexible menu of 18 performance metrics, so 18 different things that a development can choose to incorporate. And Megan's going to walk you through the details of some of those. Again, many of these elements are things we're hearing from local developers they're already doing. So it's more insulation, it's using native plants, it's looking at ways to manage stormwater on site in a way that is most effective and efficient. The process to create this flexible menu was in part led by the technical expertise of Urban Equation, a consulting firm that we've worked with, and really informed by a lot of local consultation and conversation, which is why it took us some time. Work began in earnest on this project in January of 2024, when we received $445,000 from NRCan for their Codes Acceleration Fund. Through 2024, we really tried to ground things locally in conversation with our municipalities and also local industry. So we held 2 public workshops with over 40 participants in Grey County. We had 3 industry sessions with over 114 participants, and then 3 Grey County specific municipal workshops to talk to your local planning and building staff. We took all that, and in 2025, we refined it. We also paid heed to the changing provincial landscape in terms of planning regulation. And we launched a key component of the program, which is the Talent and Business Attraction Plan. So the Talent and Business Attraction Plan is really, as I mentioned, trying to make sure that we are well positioned to realize the benefits of green construction in our area. So we launched that with Georgian College. There's also a letter of support in the package from Georgian about why they think this is valuable. And we kicked that off. And then to my great pleasure, in August, we were able to bring on Megan Miles as the dedicated program coordinator with the NRCan grant funding. And so she's been kind of refining and leading us up to today. So that's what it is, but why are we doing this? So we know from the latest growth management projections that there's going to be over 14,000 new residential units over the next 25 years. Those buildings hopefully are going to last over 100 years. We want to build them right. We want to build them in a way that brings the most benefit to our residents. We know that in our climate, an upfront capital increase, so spending 1% to 4% more when you build the building to be energy efficient, can result in up to a 50% annual energy cost savings. If you think about that, you're paying that little bit more at the beginning, and then your energy bills or our residents' energy bills could be up to 50% less. That's in a multi-unit residential building. Single-family homes, the return's closer to 20% in energy cost savings, but still significant. Also, if we're building these things to be water efficient. It also saves us on county infrastructure. So every millimeter of rain that doesn't end up in our storm sewers or our municipality storm sewers, because it's being permeated into the soil, is a benefit. There are social and environmental benefits on top of those long-term affordability benefits through things like water management, complete streets. And then the last piece is this regional competitive advantage. So on top of the number of new units we know are being built, that accounts for 9.2% of the Grey labor force in construction. So we know a lot of our residents are working in this sector already. And the estimate is that green construction jobs will double by 2030 from pre-pandemic levels. So we want to make sure that our regional builders are ready for this transition. It's also homeowner preference. So this was a last minute slide. This is from Terrion. So this is the company that provides warranty for new home construction. They do an annual new home buyer report where they ask residents who are going to be buying new homes what's important to them. And in their own words, energy efficiency has a surprisingly strong showing in important factors when shopping for a new home. So it's number 3. And this is new home buyers specifically. So it may not be the top priority of all home buyers, but people who are going to be buying new residential units are interested in energy efficiency. And so this program allows us to recognize and celebrate developments that can deliver that for our residents. So my final slide before handing it over to Megan to talk about the details is to say that we are aligned with provincial direction. Scott and his team know that it's been a rapidly changing landscape. By bringing forward an entirely voluntary program with flexible pathways to achievement, we know we are well aligned with the province and what they are asking for in terms of green development. So with all that said, I will hand it over to Megan to walk you through the details.
So for applicants who choose to participate, the program will work alongside the usual development review process with no additional delays and approvals, as Linda mentioned. We work closely with county and municipal planning staff to develop a streamlined process. And based on this input, we're proposing a county coordinated program, meaning that the county would receive and review program submissions alongside planning applications going to the municipalities or the county. We'll continue to collaborate with municipalities on implementation subject to local interest and capacity. Municipalities are often the first point of contact when an applicant is starting a project, so we certainly welcome municipal staff sharing program information with applicants early in the process and flagging any potential participants. If an applicant chooses to participate, they will submit a completed checklist and supporting documents, and then county staff will review the submission and confirm the points achieved. So here's an overview of the metrics and the point structure developed through stakeholder consultation and best practices. Generally, the number of points reflects the cost or difficulty of implementing each feature. The point structure allows applicants to pick and choose what metrics make sense for their projects and provides them with the flexibility for different types of projects and different site conditions. The energy and carbon merit, as well as the bronze threshold, provide a very attainable entry point with the ability to achieve recognition with just focusing on a few metrics. So the builders don't have to do everything. They can pick and choose to see what makes sense for their project. Over time, it'll be really useful to see which metrics have the greatest uptake and where more support is needed. And in the future, council may choose to refine the points to reflect new local priorities. Some similar municipal programs have implemented financial or non-financial incentives such as development charge rebates, community improvement plans, expedited approvals, or servicing allocation. At this point, as a new program, we're initially proposing a recognition program where applicants would be and participants would be featured through project profiles, bronze, silver, and gold program logo that the company can use for marketing purposes, as well as an awards event. And we'll explore doing this in coordination with existing business or industry events. We'll also continue to explore opportunities for other financial or non-financial incentives, which may be feasible or of interest to some municipalities. So while the recognition While the recognition program focuses on what features are being implemented, the capacity building aspect of the program focuses on why and identifying what supports are needed to make it easier to incorporate key features into new builds. As we shared with PDAC last month, we're collaborating with Georgian College and nonprofit Sustainable Waterloo Region on a regional readiness research project, which will help us identify what barriers and economic opportunities exist. We also have an advisory group of county and municipal economic development staff to make sure findings align with local experience and strategic priorities. So overall, this research is helping us get a clear understanding of where we have good coverage and where we don't. Is local industry able to get the goods and services, the skilled workforce, or training that they need to implement these features? Given the projected growth in the green building sector, there's a significant opportunity in building higher performance and retrofitting buildings. So rather than sending money out of our communities by importing fossil fuels, we can hire local businesses and create local jobs. So currently we're in the engagement phase of this project. So we're talking to local contractors about their on-the-ground experiences. We've collected over 70 survey responses in the past month. We're hosting a series of focus groups, and we spoke with local contractors at the Home Builders Association earlier this week. And we'll share these findings in a report later this year. In terms of next steps, pending council approval, we'll work to launch the program later this spring. We'll start with confirming with each municipality on how exactly they want to be involved. And after launch, we look towards promoting the program, providing one-on-one support with staff and applicants as needed, and working towards getting our first cohort of participants. Of course, with any new program, we'll be closely monitoring outcomes and making tweaks and improvements as needed. You know your communities best. So if councillors are aware of residential projects in your communities that you might be interested in participating, please let us know. Overall, we're really excited about the opportunity to work collaboratively with the construction and development industry to meet them where they're at, celebrate leadership and innovation that's already happening, and making it more visible and valued in our communities. Having local examples and case studies of different types and scales of development will help showcase what's possible and practical in our communities. Thanks so much, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So this has been a long road. It's good to see. And with that, I will look around and see if there are any questions from in the chamber. And we'll just wait a moment for the screen to switch so I can check online. Okay. And I'm not seeing any hands go up. This has been a long road. We have seen a lot of progress along the way, and the timeline that you shared certainly emphasized the kind of input that went into it along the way as well. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? And this motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to need to do a break at this point in time. We're at 11:15 and our lunch is scheduled for 12:30. So if we can be back in our seats ready to go at 11:25, we will move on to the next report. Thank you. Could I please ask committee of the whole members if they could start to make their way back to their seats? Thank you. Okay, we have the nod from technology that we are able to continue after our break. The next one is item 7E. And Madam Clerk, I'm not going to read this out because we have already, we are actually putting it back on the table. So this was the item, what you see printed in the agenda was the item that was deferred from the February 12th meeting. So there is no need to look for a mover and a seconder to enter into discussion. And as the report, as we will hear from the CAO in a moment, the report adds extra information and a consideration of different directions in which we may go now that we have the table open to begin discussions on this topic again. So just before you get started, CAO Schertzer, I do want to just recognize, first of all, I want to recognize the municipalities, staff, councils of the lower tiers who worked very hard to piece together the input that they're able to give to us in a timeline that was effectively needed to happen now. Couldn't have happened earlier because we needed to have this kind of information in front of everybody to have those discussions. So it was the right time and place for us to hear that feedback. We couldn't have been able to process that as swiftly as we could with this report in front of us without the energy and effort of our senior staff, CAO Schertzer and Director Hoy and Deputy CAO and the whole team that was ready to respond and visit with all the municipalities to make sure that as much information could be shared as possible so that we could come back here as a county council, a committee of the whole, to be able to contemplate the pathway that we may wish to go forward from there. So my thanks to that. And with that, CAO, why don't you share what you've learned and support the report that you've provided us. Thank you.
Great. Good morning, Warden and members of council. And thank you for those comments, Warden. And I equally thanked the COs when I met with them last week for their efforts to allow us to come and delegate to all 9 members councils in such a short time period. And also thank them obviously for all the reports and comments and questions that each of the staff from the municipalities put forward as well, again, under a short time frame. So definitely an overall a great county team effort to put all this information together so that we could present this report to you today. So again, good morning, everyone. Following the deferral of the task force recommendation regarding the proposed road transfers, as the warden indicated, staff attended all 9 member municipal council meetings to provide an update on the road transfer process, the proposed financial model, as well as the proposed transfer dates. We also provided updated information, including the most recent asset data, and the draft road transfer agreements were also shared with municipal staff. So this report provides a summary of what we heard from member municipalities during the additional engagement period, identifies some potential options to address the municipal comments for council or the task force to consider, depending on what pathway and direction that council provides. While staff have identified potential options to address some of the concerns heard in the report, there hasn't been sufficient time to fully assess those options or to have further discussions with municipal staff regarding some of those potential options. The report does identify some potential next steps through the motions in the report that would allow these options to be explored in further detail. The first motion that committee will need to deal with following the presentation of this report is to deal with that deferred task force motion. That was deferred at the February 12th committee of the whole meeting to be dealt with at today's committee of the whole meeting. For the deferred motion, as noted in the report, council has a few options. You can vote on the deferred motion as it stands. You can amend the deferred motion. You can defer it to a future date or refer it back to the task force, or you can postpone the deferred motion indefinitely. Postponing indefinitely avoids taking a position or on a question motion and avoids a direct vote at this time. It essentially, I'll put in quotes, kills the motion which allows committee to consider other motions based on the information that we've summarized in this report. If council chooses to support, defeat, or amend the deferred motion, this could limit options moving forward, or could create scenarios where council may find themselves into reconsideration territory. So to avoid that quagmire of reconsideration, we think the cleanest approach likely is postponing indefinitely that deferred motion. Then council can decide through either the main motion that's identified in the report, or the alternative main motion, or some other motion, whether to continue the road transfer work with refinements and further analysis, or to pause and reset through an updated transportation master plan, or some other form of direction that staff are looking for. If a committee wanted to consider providing a different direction compared to the deferred recommendation of the task force, again, staff are suggesting that's the cleanest approach would be to postpone indefinitely that deferred motion. Before I turn it over to Pat to highlight some of the comments that we heard during the most recent engagement and some of the potential options to consider, we did hear from most municipalities that they understood and generally agreed upon the overall principles of the right road, right owner approach. But we also heard from the majority of the municipalities that additional time is required in order to review the agreements and to better understand the financial and the asset management implications, particularly for roads proposed for download. We did provide links to all the municipal staff reports. And again, thank you to all the municipal staff that put forward those reports. Those are all linked in the report. So you have all the information that we've received. We've also summarized all the questions and comments that were provided by municipalities in the appendix and provided some initial responses to those questions and comments as well. So with that procedural framework and context in mind, I'll now turn it over to Pat to highlight some of the key themes of the comments we heard during the recent engagement and some of the potential options for addressing the comments we heard, because that information we think will help inform the direction that committee of the whole may want to provide back to staff to consider. Pat.
All right, thank you, Randy. And again, I'll echo those thank you from the warden and the CAO to your staff and councils. There was a lot of heavy lifting here in a very short time. So I know it's a lot of pressure for everybody and everyone worked real hard to get their comments back. So we appreciate that. I'm going to try to briefly go over this report here. As you can see, this report is 36 pages. It's kind of like Nile talks. There's a lot here. So I'm as you see now, I'll put my name on it, but there's a lot of Nile in there. But I'm going to try to work through it a little briefly, just to go over, because we did notice a lot of the same themes coming up, right? And they did, we weren't totally surprised by it. And it's good to get it all that we're all talking about our concerns, because it's a big step for everybody, this whole process, this long storied process. So the first thing I start with item 2 on page 9 of the report was the transition timeline. That July timeline, pretty much everybody, it seemed like, felt it was just too soon. It's kind of, sped up here at the end. So we're recommending in this to move the date either to late October after the election and potentially shifting to 2027, or as Randy went over with those options, maybe further. That also kind of takes care of the item number 2 on page 9, the civic address changes. If it was pushed off to after the election, some of the concerns about everything being in place for the election gives us more time just to work, and it would be after the vote that people would be getting these address changes. So next I'll move on into page 9 about some of the funding, the transition funding. So the majority of the concerns were about the various forms of funding, because it isn't just one kind of stream. It is very complicated. So we had a lot of concern about the predictability and security, where people just wanted a fixed amount. And it kind of goes over it in the report here that the fixed funding might seem appealing, but it introduces risk for both the county and the municipalities. Either the percentage of increase of the county capital budget is more than expected or less than expected. It can end up with one party being short of the funding sharing if you pick a rate to the number now. So like, I'm kind of trying to think of it kind of like our OSIF funding. We know a number's coming. We don't know exactly what it is. You're kind of in the ballpark. If you get the number, you think you're going to get your fine. If you get more, that's even better. So that's kind of where we're still recommending to stick to the formula that we came through for funding, at least for the transitional costs. One thing we heard from the majority of the people potentially receiving urban downloads was the operation and maintenance costs. That's a challenge to absorb those costs. It's a challenge regarding staff, equipment, and as we've said, even in our original trips to all of the municipalities, they're busier roads than the majority. There's a few cases they aren't, but in a lot of cases they are. So we also added in here another potential option of flexibility of transition funds. So we'd be phasing in the county support regarding maintenance costs, the operation and maintenance costs on page 11. So we would pay, because no one has it in their budget for this year, we'd be paying 100% now, and then over time it would slowly diminish that by 2030, people would be paying for their own urban maintenance. One other funding, page 12 and 13, was development charges. So the municipalities asked that funds collected to the county flow through for those projects. So we're proposing the consideration of a one-time transfer of that portion of the DC reserves. So you'll see a chart on page 13. So just to give you a little bit of background on how that chart is formed, the amount of DC jobs that are going in the potential transfers, the urban transfers, are 28% of the DC reserve. So we took that 28% and came up with that number of 5.3 million. Of that 28%, the jobs that were identified in the DC study each add up to a percentage too. So I'll take Owen Sound for an example. 60% of the money being collected under the DC was for jobs in Owen Sound. So that equates to the 3.1 million that Owen Sound would receive for the DC funding. Now, that being said, as with all our DC jobs, they're collected, into a pot. But depending on what happens with the jobs, they end up going to a DC job. But that being said, the amounts do change sometimes over time. It's not like if a job had a DC amount in our bylaw of $1 million, it's not like whoever receives that has to spend that $1 million on that exact job doing the exact same thing we would have done. It would go into the DC pot of the receiver. So the risk, of course, there's the risk that DCs aren't going to be around, which is, one government decision away from happening maybe. And the other risk, of course, is that a lot of the roads we're taking on probably they have needs, obviously, and they weren't necessarily have any DC funds connected to them, depending on what the municipalities have in their DC bylaws. So there's a bit of a risk there in DC, and that it's not totally clear and it's not permanent. Maybe there's just a kind of an unknown. Another thing, I'll go on to item 7 on page 13, was the short-term capital needs. So, and we've kind of said this from the beginning too, nobody really wants to inherit a road that immediately has a whole bunch of needs. Now, mind you, we are sort of getting that in the rural exchanges. We're getting a few that will have needs, more quickly than slowly. But we've kind of been taking from the start, the action that anything that is imminently going to need to be done, we would do before we hand it over. So we're doing that this year. We're working on Markdale and Dundalk. Those are jobs that were, scheduled to go anyway. So we're doing them this year. So as the timeline moves forward, there's always going to be a new job that is supposed to be going the next summer. So those will keep changing as the path goes forward. But right now we've got in here committed to doing work on the Clarksburg Bridge, which was pretty eminently needing work, solving the Harrison Park Hill issues, because we have money and a lot of it's DC related, so we'd have to calculate the DC with that. Meaford Grey Road 12, which is going to go fairly soon, and Grey Road 4 in Flesherton, there's a job there which is going fairly soon, which that part of the job would be going to the municipality. So those are the 4 new jobs that we've kind of got in the queue, so they would go forward. And on to item 8 was the overall funding package. So they expressed concern it did not reflect life cycle costs and long-term needs. So in some cases, and part of this is because there wasn't that much communication as far as people phoning us before they wrote something in their report or whatever, but in some cases, the funds used or the figures used were representative of an entire new road cost, where the municipal portion of the sanitary and water main is already included in the lower tier numbers. So some of the numbers are inflated just because this is only the Grey County portion of the costs. And as no one has full funding, as we've said from the start, there was no staff report written saying we have more than enough funding and we're going to give some money back, right? So that was a pretty widespread thought that just they were a little concerned about the funding. And again, there was some recommendations on inheriting or fixing up the road in its entirety before it goes over. That is a pretty heavy thing to handle as far as it would kind of, kibosh our capital program on every other road trying to get these done. So we struggle with that one, but obviously they're heard that it's tough to take on a new road that has needs that you're not used to. On to page 15, item 9, public engagement. So a lot of requests for more consultation. And now we've been to a lot of these public meetings. We've had a lot of them. We spent a night in an empty hall talking to the warden one night. And the public, even the ones that did come to the meeting, there was a lot of folks in a few of them. They're really confused by the whole thing anyway. They want their road plowed and they want the pavement to be good and they don't want potholes. And we didn't really get a lot of concern about the project. They just want the road taken care of and they don't care who does it. And they don't want to hear excuses why it's not done, that it's one municipality, not the other. They don't like the runaround. They again agreed to the idea in principle that, okay, we'd have one person to go to, if I want to do my parade, I don't have to go to multiple people. I can just go to the municipality. So I think we're recommending the more targeted communication, because it seems like the meetings that were well attended are ones that were attended by people that live on the roads that are switching municipalities. So those attendees had a lot of concerns just to know exactly how it was going to affect them. So I think rather than a whole bunch of public meetings, I think we'd be looking just to keep targeting the residents directly affected. On to item 10, page 16, and your staff, a lot of your staff mentioned this, that the Transportation Master Plan, it's evolved a lot since then. Maybe as it was completed the first time, there was a lot of, for those that remember, there was a lot of kind of hanging recommendations where the solution wasn't really thought out, which is what we're trying to get through here now. But it's evolved over time. So if you just went and read the Transportation Master Plan and didn't read any report between 2016 and 2025, you would have a hard time reconciling it too. So that's why we think at some point, whenever that is, a TMP update would be appropriate. We didn't necessarily take one on the time in between because this process has been working its way kind of through. One other thing, I guess at the end, there was additional issues. Traffic signals, a lot of concern about traffic signals. We don't really have a lot in here now as far as traffic signal ongoing expenses. So that is something that we will need to straighten out, funding, whether it's maintenance or ongoing capital. A lot of the condition-based funding people were concerned about. And part of that, when you are inheriting an asset, we have a lot of asset information. But of course, there's only so much time and room to look over it all for the municipality. So there's a general uneasiness that they don't have a full idea of the assets that they're taking on. And I get that because there's a lot there and it's a lot of data to sort through for something that you don't even have yet. So I could understand how there's an uneasiness there. And just some boundary considerations. Some of these agreements with Bruce County and such, a lot of issues in around Hanover. There's that border there and the prosperity lands are in there. There's a lot of things going on that make a kind of a strange agreement compared to other places. So a lot of it requires further analysis, but on to financial impact. So you'll see the chart on page 19. So we've added some operating funds on there, the DC transfers. So that is just under 10 million more in funding. Again, we haven't had, you know, a ton of time to go over all these numbers. We haven't gone through and done a full capital on behalf of the county based on these numbers yet. Although we did multiple capital analysis last year with the urban transfers in and out, so we do have some stuff around, but so that's kind of where we're at. We know it's going to cost more. Everyone didn't feel like there was enough funding there, and I understand that. So I just wanted to mention that like Grey County Transportation Services, we're fortunate enough to have long-term professional knowledgeable staff that work for us. And we are working with the best of intentions. So we're committed to working with the member municipalities. We're only a phone call away. So when a question comes up at your municipality, feel free for anyone to call us, counselor, staff member, and then maybe we can answer your questions, because there is some things going on in the task force. If you didn't have all the information, or maybe you weren't here from the start, or maybe you just started at a municipality, there is some things that make you shake your head. It's not totally clear where some of the thinking came from. So we're always available for consultation to talk about where things came from, especially with that TMP history. There's a lot of history there that you wouldn't really know about without reading through report after report after report. So we're always around to talk. So I guess back to Randy. That's kind of where I'm at as far as the, and again, thanking everyone for their feedback. It's all valuable, and we can kind of understand what everyone's mentioning.
Thanks, Pat. And just through you, Warden, just to wrap up then in closing, again, just going back to what I was noting earlier, the first motion that committee will need to deal with is the deferred task force motion. As noted previously, council can vote on the motion as it currently stands, amend the deferred motion, defer it to a future date, or refer back to the task force, or council can postpone the deferred motion indefinitely. As noted earlier, the postponing indefinitely probably is the cleanest approach. Avoid some of any future procedural and reconsideration quagmires, I'll call them, if it's dealt with in any other way. If council adopts the motion to postpone indefinitely, for example, council can consider the main motion or the alternative main motion that are in the report to provide further direction to staff, or some other motion that council may want to put forward and consider. I'll just go over those two motions. If council adopts the main motion, we call this the continue to do the work, but recalibrate option. So staff would return with a fulsome structured options report for task force consideration in late April or early May. Bring recommendations back to council in late May, early June. As noted in the motion, the intent would be to invite municipal staff to participate in the task force discussions. That approach is, again, is intended to further explore some of those key issues that were raised by municipalities, as highlighted by Pat earlier, and to explore some of those potential options that Pat provided. Based on that timing, it does mean that the July 2026 transfer date cannot be achieved, and therefore the implementation potentially transfers to either late 2026 or early 2027, or whatever the task force recommends based on some of those further conversations. If council adopts the alternative main motion, we call this the pause and reset option. Staff would essentially conclude the current road exchange work for now and proceed with a new transportation master plan during the next term of council, with road transfer decisions revisited through that updated TMP process. Just to build on some of the Pat's earlier comments too, just to highlight in terms of either of those processes, of course, we're open to further engagement with whatever directions provided today by committee of the whole. We're committed to working with member municipalities further, to engage with them, to explore some of these options further, whether that's rolling up our sleeves and doing that this year through the task force, or as part of an updated TMP process. We're happy to still have those conversations and dig through some of these options in further detail. Of course, council can put forward it and consider any alternative motion once the deferred motion has been dealt with. And ultimately, staff are looking for direction from committee on how you would like to move forward based on the additional information presented in the staff report. And we're happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, CAO. So just to recap in terms of what our process of decision making is here, we did pull it back onto the table. It was moved and seconded. Obviously, if it were passed, then that would be the direction. But if it were not passed, that would cease our ability to have further work done and conversation. Versus if we take what we have on the table, but then proceed, and I'll confirm with Madam Clerk just to make sure that we're all on the same page here. The first item then would be to the alternative route would be to recognize that first motion is it? Okay. It is up on the screens? No. Okay. All right. So within the report, just because everybody has that motion already printed in their agenda, I don't think we need to have the original one on the screen. But looking into the report, the first action that committee of the whole can consider is the motion that reads that the motion deferred from the committee of the whole meeting of February 12th, 2026 regarding approval of the road transfer agreement templates and direction to bring forward road assumption / deletion bylaws for council's consideration be postponed indefinitely. That would be the first motion that would be moved and seconded. And should that pass, then that would then allow us to then carry on with new motions afterwards, rather than needing to return to the one that's currently on the table. Is that correct?
Through you, Warden, yes, that's correct. So that would be the option to postpone indefinitely is the wording in that motion in the first motion in the report. As noted, there's other options that committee may consider, but that is one option, is to postpone indefinitely. And as noted earlier, that'd be the cleanest option we think from a staff perspective.
Okay, so perhaps then if we just focus on that part before we might, so that we can see where we go as a committee of the whole, and then we'll know about what part two would be in terms of decision making. Madam Clerk, does that work well for process? Okay, she is concurring. Okay, so with that, I would like to actually take a moment to look to the chair of our task force, Councillor Greig, if he would like to begin this point of discussion that we have at this point in time.
I don't have a whole lot to add other than I'd be in favor of the motion to postpone indefinitely so that we can open up the floor for further conversation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I can hear that as a willingness to move and look to see if there's a seconder to get on the floor for discussion. I see it seconded by Councillor Body. So it has been moved by Councillor Greig, seconded by Councillor Body to postpone indefinitely. It's now on the floor for discussion, which allows us the opportunity to make any further discussions on the topic here. Okay. Oh, I see Councillor Eccles online. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and through you to, I guess maybe it's possibly Tara, Madam Clerk. So I do understand, or if I can, make it clear for me to understand where the motion on the floor is to postpone indefinitely. How and when would any of this ever come back? Is it a notice of motion that somebody would need to put forward for the next meeting to consider? And I'll put out an option, you know, a notice of motion for the next meeting to consider splitting this transfer, and that we deal with the rural and the urban separately. Because as of right now, that seems to be where the biggest problem is the urban, not necessarily transfer. I've always looked at it as an agreement very similar to the one we have with MTO on Highway 6. But I guess we're not there at that for the benefits that have that. But I guess postponing this indefinitely, I just, that indefinite part, I mean, obviously we've postponed it almost indefinitely since 2012 when the Transportation Master Plan came out. So how do we get a motion back in front with this postponing indefinitely thing.
Okay, so that question has been directed to the clerk. So, Madam Clerk, do you want to begin with a response?
Thank you. And through you, Madam Warden, hopefully I can provide a little bit of clarification. So the motion to postpone indefinitely is simply to take the motion that was deferred, the motion itself, and postpone it and put it to bed. It doesn't have the effect of putting the topic to rest. It's just a way of, because if council votes on the deferred motion, in essence, you're going to be making a decision in favor or against. So this is just a different way of setting that aside based on the additional information that's been collected from member municipalities. And then because we're still on this topic today and there's a supplemental report that's been included, there are other motions that are related to the same topic that will give staff direction, if council votes in favor of it, to proceed in a separate way. So just to summary, it's just putting the motion that was deferred to bed, not the topic as a whole, if that makes sense.
Okay, so if I could just add a question of clarification before checking to see if Councillor Eccles has any follow-up. As you've just said, so how would it get back here for discussion? That could perhaps be if the subsequent motion has directed that the task force continues work, for example, then we would see a report come back and then it would be back on the table for another discussion. Yeah. Okay, can you just answer with the microphone on? Thank you.
Yes, and any subsequent motion would provide that, could provide that direction to staff. It gets discussed further with the committee of the whole or the task force, but it is related to the minutes from February of the task force, as well as the supplemental report that was included today. So as long as it's a motion that's generally in line with those things, then I would suggest it's perhaps in order and could be done and given today.
Okay, so Councillor Eccles, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at, was we could put forward the postponing motion, for clarity, is basically the February 12th action and that report. It's off the table. The supplementary report today, we can derive motions out of that today.
Yes, that is correct. We're getting that confirmation that is correct, and it allows us to clear the deck so that we can move forth with motions after this one. Okay, I did see the deputy warden's hand up online, but he's shaking his head, so I think that's been resolved, and I'm looking around the room for any other questions, comments. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands in the room and I'm not seeing any hands online. So the motion that we have is about to postpone indefinitely. I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so that now allows us to move on to subsequent action. So CEO Schertzer, do you just want to dial us back in now at this point in time where we are? And then I'll look for, I saw a hand over here. I think it was Councillor Body, and then I'll go to the deputy warden as well.
Thank you, Warden. So with that deferred motion now kind of put to bed, essentially, indefinitely, now staff would be looking obviously for direction from committee in terms of next steps as it relates to some of the comments that were identified in the report, exploring some of the options further. So there's two motions that are identified in the report. The main motion, as noted, is what we call the continue the work but recalibrate option. So if adopted, council will be directing staff to prepare a report that incorporates the feedback received from member municipalities, as well as council's discussion and direction today, and to bring that report back to the task force for consideration. That motion would also identify that up to 2 members of the municipal staff would be invited to participate as part of those task force discussions to make sure that we're, again, all on the same page from a technical and financial perspective. And finally, it directs the task force to bring forward recommendations for potentially a late 2026 or early 2027 road exchange. So that's essentially what that would mean is that it's all this information goes back to the task force. We bring back further information. We explore some of these options further. The task force would make some recommendations, and those would come back to this committee of the whole for further direction and consideration. The alternative main motion is the pause and reset option. If adopted, council would take no action as it relates to the February 5th task force recommendations at this stage. Direct staff to cease further work on the proposed road transfers until completion of the next TMP, and direct staff to proceed with the development of a new transportation master plan that would be funded from the development charges reserve, and that would be completed during the next term of council. So that would be a pause and reset into next council. The alternative main motion, the first motion in that report would be to roll up our sleeves, continue the work this year, have further discussion with the task force and member municipalities, and bring that back to committee in May or June of this year.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And yes, so I heard several times in your verbal presentation plus in the report, the staff recommendation is the cleanest way would be to consider the first main motion that you've cited in the report.
Through you, Warden. At this stage, obviously, we're looking for any direction from the committee in terms of how to proceed in terms of next steps, up to the committee in terms of how they would like to proceed based on the information that we provide to them today. And ultimately, we're just looking for some direction, whether to continue work on that this year and move that forward further, or to pause it and incorporate as part of a TMP update into the next term of council. So either way, we need to build this in as part of our work plans and our work and our next steps. So that's why we're looking for that direction.
Okay, great. So, so you're looking for direction. Thank you. I appreciate that you've put forth some items for us to consider at this point in time, and we're going to go to our committee, the whole members next. The main motion allowing you to continue getting the direction to continue the work in this way and form that it's been outlined, and that it should be noted that the two members of municipal staff would not be voting members of the task force, but simply there to assist in having more of the conversations that have been happening for months between the lower tier and upper tier staff members. So it would just be helpful to have everybody in the same room at the same time. Okay, so with that, we're going to go to Councillor Boddy next.
Thank you. Looking at the alternative motions that were recommended in the staff report, looking at this. So the first one is take no action, and I don't think we want to stop action. He certainly didn't want to throw out all the hard work that's been done by the committee, by staffs really, but mostly county staff. So I don't think we wanted to say take no action, because I just puts it into the ether. Same thing to cease all further work and proposed road transfers until completion of the next master plan, but seems to me ceasing all further work also means that there's nothing going on, but there still could be things going on that we want to do. If I'm reading that right, the third recommendation, I think I've got them in order, but I may not, that staff be directed to proceed with the development of a new transportation master plan to be funded from the development charges reserve, and that master plan be completed during the next term of council, would be the next step, I think, if I'm reading this right, to keep moving the ball forward. And if I've got that right, I'd be happy to move that motion, but I want to make sure that I've got it right.
See you.
Through you, Warden. So that is one potential option for direction that this committee can provide, is to pause this work for now and incorporate some of this work and some of these comments and direction as part of that TMP update. that would bring it into the next term of council. If committee wanted staff to still investigate some of that work this year, then I'd probably then be recommending or lean towards the main motion in the report, which is to, again, continue the work and have some further discussions with member municipalities, have those discussions with the task force, and the task force then brings recommendations back to this council. Those recommendations from the task force could include to pause this and bring it as a transportation master plan in the future, or it could include that we've landed in a good spot or a good enough spot from a financial consideration that they're recommending some of these other options that were identified in the report and are recommending that to committee to consider. So that's where I think if committee wants the work to continue this year, I'd be suggesting then that the main motion maybe is what this committee may want to consider.
Okay, follow up, Councillor Body, before I go to the deputy warden.
Well, my thinking is that we want to move forward, but not necessarily put it to the final vote or come to the final conclusion. We want to collect more information. If we've learned anything from the discussions with board tiers, is there's a lot of questions that there isn't answers for. And so, you know, I've got some other motions that I've potentially could bring that I've shared for thought with others. And my thinking is, how do we collect the information? Scott wants to point out that back in October 10th, 2024, I said at a meeting that we've been dragging this on since 2012 and we need to move forward. I still feel that. And at that meeting in October 10th, 2024, we passed a template for the financial plan, or however you want to call it. And we also talked then about starting negotiations. In my mind, I still support that and stand behind my comments at that point. In my mind, negotiations is, and it goes back to practicing family law, try and get everybody so they're almost in the same level of unhappiness. That's kind of sarcastic, but right now we're really far apart because we got too many questions and too much information that we don't have all the same information. How do we close this gap? Because we're never going to get that we're all perfectly happy or unhappy. Some are still going to benefit more than others. That's fine. But how do we get that gap closed, that we've got data that we all have, that we all understand, that moves us closer to that middle of unhappiness? So I want to figure out how to get there. And I think talking to Randy earlier today, the transportation master plan gets renewed every 10 years or so, probably automatically. And it's probably been about 12 now with some amendments that have come along the way that it probably makes sense that given the growth that we've seen, certainly in the town of Blue, but across the rest of Grey County, that the transportation master plan was for 2014. And though there's been some changes, if we could get that new change come together and some of the other things that I'd want to ask about, how do we move this forward so we're not losing the good work that's been done, but we collect more information that we can put to council, do it not in a hurry, but do it carefully so that we're all understand it and do it right, and be able to continue to move forward and not kill it, not bring it backwards, not stop it. So it seems to me that that directing to proceed with the development of a new transportation master plan is probably the next motion, I think. And then possibly after that, although I don't know that we want to cease further work in the proposed road transfer, I guess maybe we do until the completion of the next transportation master plan. I think we'd want to decide here whether we want to proceed with the development of a new transport master plan first before we decide what that next. In my talking in circles, or does that make sense?
CEO?
Through you, Warden, as noted, that is one direction, that is one option that this committee can provide is whether or not they want to proceed with the transportation master plan update. From a high level staff discussion that we had just even as this morning, we think that the outcomes of that transportation master plan will likely recommend something very similar to what is being proposed in terms of the road exchanges and the road transfers. How we then explore those, so whether or not we're exploring those options as part of that transportation master plan process into the next term of council, again, that's one option, or still exploring those options in further detail with member municipalities during this term of council, which is the main motion, which is the task force, bringing it back to task force and having further discussions. Where that lands and where the task force would recommend back to this committee of the whole, I can't predict, but we'll provide that information back to the task force to then decide, is there enough information there? As Councillor Body indicated, there's some gaps. And so we haven't been able to explore those in further detail and have those further discussions with member municipalities. So we will do that. We are, on a regular basis, we do what the pavement condition index updates every year. The last couple of years hasn't been as accurate as we had hoped. So we're actually going and looking at a different approach to how we gather that information. We will have that information, might not be in time frame for this, but we will have that information this year to be able to explore further in terms of what the pavement condition index, and we're hoping to use what's called LiDAR information, so it'll be more accurate. So again, these are all information and inputs that we can provide eventually as part of this process, but there's two paths here. One is refer this essentially back to the task force, explore some of these options that we've identified in this report in further detail with member municipalities to eventually come back with recommendations to this committee of the whole in terms of what you would like to do this year or into future years, or pause this all for now and incorporate this work as part of the transportation master plan update into the next term of council. So those are the two paths that we're hearing. Both have pros and cons, I would say. Again, if the intent of this committee is to roll up our sleeves a little bit more and to dig into some of these options a bit further with member municipalities, I'd be leaning towards the main motion, which is referring this back to the task force. Let's have some further conversations, dig into this a little bit further, and then bring this back to committee in terms of what you want to do. And the timeframes, again, that we're looking at, we'd be meeting with the task force either late April, early May, and then in bringing back that recommendation from the task force in May or June is the timeframe. So that gives you the context of the main motion. Again, the alternative main motion is that we're pausing this for now, or this is how staff are interpreting it. We're pausing this now, and then we're going to incorporate this review as part of the TMP. But again, staff think that it's likely that these will be recommended as part of that TMP process. So we're going to have to unpack these options anyways, either now or later on.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Body, I see your hand raised. If there's, the deputy warden put his hand up at the same time as you, so I do want to, okay, thank you. I'm getting the go ahead. Okay, so deputy warden, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I have a bunch of thoughts about how council wants to deal with or trust or listen to any of the committees as I've had in the past. But that isn't necessarily productive for this morning. But one question I would ask before I say anything more, is there a motion on the floor?
Yeah, we're getting confirmation from the clerk. There isn't, because the motion to postpone indefinitely cleaned the slate of the previous motion that we had moved.
Okay, so thank you very much for that clarification. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to move the main motion as is being discussed or described on the agenda there, the main motion, which would refer it back to the task force for their consideration, further consideration. I think that's important to do that. The task force has put a lot of time and effort into this. The chair has done a marvelous job of guiding the committee through various discussions. So I want to give kudos to Councillor Gregg for his work there. I do think it's important, as I say, to send this back to the committee and listen to some of the, or all of the discussion that has come forward from the lower tiers on their concerns about, you know, the recommendations that were put forward. Let's have another look at them. Let's look at them harder and not lose all of the work that has been done to date. So with that said, as I say, Madam Warden, I'll move the main motion, please.
And Councillor Mackey, are you seconding?
Thank you, Warden. Yes, I would second that motion. There has been a tremendous amount of work done. You know, we can see the finish line here. And it's like running a marathon, seeing the finish line and dropping dead before you get there. I don't want that to happen. I want us to keep this work going. I hear the concerns that have been brought forth from member municipalities. I think there's an opportunity to try to address those. I think we're doing all of us a disservice if we don't try to address them. So I think we need to keep the work going, and I fully support doing that through the task force and keeping this process going. To start fresh, we've just wasted 12, 15 years of work. So that's not good use of dollars. So let's keep it going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did I see a hand back over here? Councillor Gregg?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts that went sideways because I'm actually planning to run a marathon in 6 weeks, and I just got a whole lot more worried about the outcome. Thanks for the analogy. First question to staff. Council approved in the budget last year moving forward with this initiative. Fully. Was not a recorded vote. Has not asked for anybody to show any abstention or disagreement with it. I have one question. There was an ask to increase legal resources to accommodate this initiative as part of that budget. And we budget for 3/4 of a year starting April 1st generally when we make those assessments. Where are we with that position that this council endorsed at the budget process to facilitate this initiative?
Through you, Warden. So I'll first start to say that position has been hired. Person that started actually this week. One of the potential projects for them to work on, or to at least provide additional capacity in legal services, was related to the outcomes or the potential outcomes of this project. There are many other things that person will also be able to work on with the amount of agreements and other things that we have from a capacity perspective. We see there's a current bottleneck as part of the agreement review process to be able to move forward with some of those agreements in a more efficient, quicker way. So it's, although this is one project, there's other things that we needed on the capacity side from legal services perspective. But that person has been hired and they have started earlier this week.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just going to touch upon a couple different items here. I'm in agreement with the motion on the floor. I think it's the way to go. Some of the motion covered by the City of Owen Sound was request that the task force undertake further analysis of the financial and operational impacts associated with the proposed urban road transfers. I'm in agreement with it. It's something that we just, and thank you very much to staff for being diligent in the last month and getting out there and visiting all the municipalities and bringing this back in a very quick fashion. It's something that I probably thought we would have been doing over the last 8 or 10 months. It didn't happen last June or last September. It happened in March, but we've collected the responses that we as a collective, I think, were hoping to collect by going out and hearing and listening to our municipal partners. I don't think the alternative of going back to a TMP is going to keep moving the ball forward. It's going to kick the issue forward to another council. The council of 2014 to 2018 moved this forward. That's they adopted the master plan. The council of 2018 to 2022 moved this forward. It's in the report that there was reporting back. This council moved it forward. There was only one ever dissenting vote, and I see Councillor Nielsen smiling. He took it on the chin that day, but his 5 votes mattered, and he was concerned with the cost. If I'm not, hopefully not putting words in his mouth. Otherwise, at committee, it has always been unanimous moving this project forward, and there has not been loud disagreement at this table. There hasn't been a plethora of recorded votes. The goal of the 2014, there's 5 goals. First goal, encourage active transportation, cycle, walk, run. That might be even a little more specific to Hanover, Owen Sound. It's hard to say Holstein. That's as relevant perhaps as it might be to the urban centers. Goal 2, movement of people and goods to the year 2036. Goal 3, OP and this council's strat plan incorporates the transportation master plan guiding documents. This council adopted and supported those in the official plan update in the strategic plan for this term of council. The TMP is to direct policies and infrastructure initiatives for the next 25 years, not for the next 10 until something gets difficult to make a decision on. And then we get a little bit wobbly and we want to pass it off and just redo the plan. Redoing the plan, I strongly suspect, would just bring back the same recommendations, and we're just determined to make it someone else's problem. We know that's going to be the outcome. It's not a question of objective. It's a question about money. The rural exchange roads are a large commitment and requirement to put in the county books. If you go back a couple reports, it's about $75 million going onto the books of the county for those road exchanges to be uploaded. That's offset by $21 million coming off the books with the roads being downloaded back to the rural partners. The difference is levy, grant programs, and DCs. And if we're going to pull a lot from DCs to fund other items, that levy ask is going to increase for that rural road exchange in the future still. There's still more information to come back. If you ask the casual citizen around the county, I think they're going to tell you that the rationalization process, as where we've landed right now, makes sense to the general resident of Grey County in terms of how they move about the county. We did not, and I think it was probably that same meeting in 2014, acknowledge strongly that we were looking for resolutions of support from every lower tier municipality because we knew we were not going to get a resolution of support. As the warden stated that day, not everyone will get an equal share, but everyone will get a fair share. And as Councillor Boddy touched on, that day, there has been a lot of work put into this, and none of us are going to be 100% happy ever. You got to think about the whole picture as part of it. We all have to give up something to get something, and we all get something when we give up something, and not everything is going to be perfect. We could ask lower tiers who are gaining something to contribute up, but we will never get the agreement we need on this. It's been 12 years, and it's time to move it forward, both urban and rural, and get it done. We will have concerns ongoing. Hanover, you're getting an intersection problem, but you're not getting a bridge problem. Town of Blue Mountains, you're getting a bridge problem, but you're not getting an intersection problem. Owen Sound, kind of getting both. So I understand the complexities of trying to ensure that we have a funding formula, a transitional funding formula that is fair and responsive to to the concerns that we hear, but we have to continue the work of the task force to be able to generate that outcome from staff, not just dismiss it and all the work that's been done at this point. I'll just note it back in the transportation master plan, there was 5 options. The recommendation is recognizing that the proper maintenance and upkeep of the road system, regardless of whether it consists of county roads or local roads, will incur significant costs beyond the current capability of the county and of the local municipalities. An approach which seeks to establish partnerships and cost sharing of the candidate road transfers is recommended. At the end of the day, the ultimate decision is on money. And if you don't want to put that on the county books, don't move the initiative forward at all. But don't just kick it. That's pointless and make it someone else's problem. It's responding to what we know needs done. The county has had the plan. We've moved it forward for 2 years. Are we going to decide to fund it, or are we not going to decide to fund it?
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. I see just one hand online, not around in the room. We'll go back to the Deputy Warden.
I was just going to say in response to Councillor Gregg, amen. I agree.
Thank you. And I don't see any further hands up. Oh, yes, I do. I see Councillor Eccles has just raised his hand. Go ahead, Councillor Eccles.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Warden. I agree with Councillor Gregg to the point that, yeah, we've been kicking this around. I guess that's something about being at county council basically since the last transfer of roads that happened. And that was in what, 2004, 2005? No, 2003, I believe it was, that those ones happened. And some of the same questions arose at that time and throughout. And I'm talking, it wasn't urban road exchange, but those were rural road exchange. And it's in that master plan of 2012, 2014. I think it was initiated in 2012 and never got to council. So it's 2 years. The idea of pushing this off, for another 2 years down to 27, we wouldn't get anything back until 29. Digest it and whatnot. It'll be through a next council. And it's that the second point that Councillor Gregg made there was the rural roads that move transportation, move our products, whether it's farm products coming off the farm in Grey County and going to market. They're finding those, and that was the responsibility of county roads to have that. And here we are, whether it's an extension of Grey Road 25 or I'm going to call it the extension from Grey Road 40 to Mennonite Corners through 2 municipalities, Chatsworth and Georgian Bluffs. But that's where the traffic is. That's where the county traffic is. And I guess my frustration is by doing this and not getting anything done out of this in this term of council is extremely disappointing. And that's why I would at least get that rural road exchange made. As traffic is coming off of 89 highway and coming north to Hopeville, it doesn't follow the road through Con as we know anymore. And for any traffic that's going east-west, the majority of traffic, we have a County Road 9 that comes from the county line to Highway 6. It only makes 3 different jogs to get there. It comes straight through. And the traffic count will tell you that. There's more traffic on concession 12, Normanby Township, than there is on the Grey County Road 9. And obviously, it connects right on a straight route right through to Dundalk, a straight route through right to Highway 124. To be able to put this off, as I said, it's just totally frustrating and a disservice to not only the county, but the county residents and the residents that are coming to and fro. So I'm wondering if I could put forward an amendment to say that we continue forward with the rural roads and the urban upload and the DC charges and the funding aspect that goes with that urban area goes back to the committee, but that we get at least some accomplishment here. I would ask that Tara, if that's possible, to put an amendment into this motion that the rural road and the rest of it goes back, the rural road exchange moves ahead with the date of July 6th, and the urban exchange, considering the money aspect and everything, goes forward, moves forward back to the committee for further definition.
Okay,
Is that amendment in order, Madam Warden?
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Eccles. Just before I direct your question to the clerk, just to confirm before I can look for a seconder, I just want to look to the CAO. The motion that is currently on the floor without amendments, there is nothing in there that would not allow the task force to prioritize where the closer wins are, where and be able to focus on the example that Councillor Eccles. It does say in the motion late 2026. That doesn't say specifically before or after elections. That just says in the fall you feel would be reasonable. So can I just ask for that input before I look to the clerk for the process question?
Through you, Warden. So yeah, obviously whatever direction committee wants to provide is we'll receive and move forward. With respect to the main motion that's currently on the floor, the Warden is correct. That could be explored further as an option with the task force to look at rural exchanges ahead of, say, some of the other proposed transfers. That is an option that's available to the task force. The wording, and I'd look to the clerk on this in terms of the wording, that we try to create some flexibility, but still provide some maybe some goalposts that can shift, is to still move forward with the road exchanges, either late 2026 into early 2027. If the direction would be to consider those earlier still, then maybe we look for amendment that way. But at the end of the day, this is something that could still be discussed with the task force. And from a staff perspective, based on some of the comments we heard from on maintenance and some of the maintenance questions, we would recommend that be discussed with the task force as to whether or not rural exchanges should be put forward ahead of the other transfers that are proposed. And then again, to have further discussions with the member municipalities and then bring that information back to this committee in terms of what they would like to do. But my only question back to, I guess, Tara and the clerk would be on the time frame of that last part of that motion. If the direction would be to advance those rural exchange potentially earlier than late 2026.
Thank you, CAO. And just before I look to the clerk, I do note that the current motion that is on the floor says recommendations for potentially a late 2026, early 2027 roads exchanges. I read that there would be nothing stopping us from bringing something of this up ahead of schedule, ahead of late 2026. I'll look to the clerk for that in a moment. I'll look to the clerk for an answer to Councillor Eccles, and then I will, and also to confirm if the wording is doable as Councillor Eccles, and then I would look for a seconder. So, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. And just in response to Councillor Eccles' proposal for an amendment, I do see it as kind of a separate, it's bringing another idea in and another action into the motion. So I don't suggest it would be an amendment. Just jumping onto what Randy has indicated, it is something that the task force could consider, but I don't see it as being an amendment to the motion on the floor, because it is introducing kind of a separate idea, and there's some other information and things that would have to be considered if that were put forward. So that would be, I think, staff's recommendations that it's not included as an amendment here today.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, then to answer Councillor Eccles, then they, if he wishes to put forth this specific aspect for the task force to consider. I mean, the task force members are all sitting here. We're all listening to the input and all listening to the feedback, but if he so wished, then that would need to be the form of a notice of motion.
I think you, after voting on this motion, should it go forward, I think another motion could be brought forward referring the rural exchange portion to the task force to consider in their meeting.
Okay, does that help you, Councillor Eccles?
Yes, and it preceded the discussion from staff of the information that Randy gave. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I wouldn't make it as an amendment, but I probably, depending on how this motion it goes forward, the prioritizing at the committee can probably bring a thought process that I had there. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you very much, Warden Matrosoff. And I'm slightly off topic, but I'm trying to process Councillor Eccles' comments here. From my recollection, the budget was based upon doing both, and that there were savings being realized from the downloading to counter the uploading costs. Would there, like, to do the proposal, as far as I understand in my own mind, there's not enough money in the budget to just do the upload, which is the greater cost. So can I just get clarity on that, just in response to Councillor Eccles?
Through your warden, Councillor Nielsen is correct. The budget is considering the budget that's been approved by council considers both the rural road exchanges and the urban road transfers. And there's balance there in terms of what the actual end cost of that would be. So with that, again, it is something still that could be discussed at the task force as a potential option to consider, but we'd want to look at what the financial implications are, as well as some of the comments we received from municipalities about the maintenance considerations, recognizing that it may take quite a period of time for the traffic patterns maybe to change, and therefore the minimum maintenance standards will have to still be addressed as part of the maintenance of those sections of roads once they're transferred. So that's some of the comments we heard. We would need to unpack that a bit further with the task force is be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any further hands online. Not seeing any further hands in the room, so I'm going to call the question on the motion that is on the floor. All those in favor? Thank you. And opposed? Okay, thank you. That motion is carried. Oh, yes. Sorry, Madam Clerk, we've had a request from Councillor Nielsen for a recorded vote.
Councillor Mackey?
In favor.
Counselor Mackey in favor, Counselor McKay. Counselor McKay in favor, Counselor Carlton. In favor, Counselor Pringle. In favor, Counselor McQueen. Opposed, Counselor Nielsen. Opposed, Counselor Patterson. In favor, Counselor Dickert. In favor, Counselor Kentner. In favor, Counselor Keaveney. In favor, Counselor Body. Opposed, Counselor Gregg. In favor, Counselor Milne.
In favor.
In favor, Counselor DeBreen.
In favor.
In favor, Warden Matrosovs. In favor, Counselor Bordignon is absent. Counselor Eccles.
In favor.
In favor, Counselor Hutchinson.
In favor.
In favor, that motion is carried 70-19.
Okay, thank you very much. So there was a discussion about a potential other motion, but I am not seeing a hand go up. So we are good to. Nope, no hands are up. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's input. And as I mentioned at the beginning, very much appreciated all of the lower tiers, both the councils and the staff, for working so carefully, so quickly throughout this last bit to try to give us something to work with. I think we have something to work with here. We've heard from committee of the whole, and this will come back to council at our next meeting. We do not have any closed session matters, nor other business. No. And therefore, I will look to any notices of motion. Not seeing any hands up for notices of motion, so a motion to adjourn. We've got it moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by the deputy mayor, the deputy warden. All those in favor? And that motion is carried.